So hopefully this gives you guys a little background as to what are the challenges on a daily basis, and what is it that we do what we do.
Right, Joe. If you'll move the slide forward, I'll talk a little bit about the research I've been doing in one of the ways to approach this that Tony was just mentioning. Something I've been watching and tracking in the evolution of is the technology around packet visibility and packet stream distribution for the purposes of monitoring, both on the network operation side as well as security operation side. And so here's a conceptual diagram of what we're talking about. We're talking about a layer that sits in between the actual monitored and secured infrastructure and this growing number of tools that are being brought to bear for the purposes of network and security operations. In the middle there, what you need is there's some big challenges in scaling this, both with a growing number of tools at the top as well as a growing number of sources of packet streams you want to feed into those tools. Historically, the approach would have been just to connect each one of these tools to its individual point or tap or span session. That really doesn't scale. There's a number of reasons technically why that's not a good route to go on span. And you can only tap so many times, and tapping is a disruptive effort on behalf of operations. As Tony mentioned just a moment ago, you need a downtime window to put a tap in. So a better answer, and one that we see a lot of increasing use of, and one that we're going to talk specifically about today here, is the use of this middle centralized element here that EMA calls a network visibility controller. Common language in the industry now is network packet broker. Some reasons why we use our terminology, but I'm not going to bore everyone with that other than to say to us it's all about visibility. So number one, first and foremost, the goal of this is to provide a more systemic approach to accessing and distributing these packet streams that are going to be used for these various monitoring analysis purposes. And then there's a special new case that we're going to talk about in just a minute that is not just passive, but now increasingly the same type of technology being used in active mode. So a couple of things I want to point out about this diagram here. The concept is if you do set up a span, you get to reuse it. So distribution of packet streams, one-to-many or many-to-many type manipulation and management of these packet streams. A lot of key functions that these platforms provide are things like load balancing. That's a really, really highly valued capability. So that NPB or NBC there can load balance multiple performance monitors or multiple security monitors, multiple packet recorders. There's a lot of capabilities in these platforms for filtering, so you can focus the streams. You can deduplicate streams, very, very helpful especially when dealing with span. You can strip headers, you can de-encapsulate, you can do timestamps, you can do port labels, lots of things you can do with these streams in order to narrow them down, optimize them for specific purposes, or make sure that you're including everything for those types of monitoring tools that need and want to see absolutely everything. So if you would, Joe, can you move forward to the next slide? One of the things that we did in the research that I conducted last fall was to check in on, for the folks who are deploying these visibility layers, in particular NVCs, NPBs, what types of tools were being attached to the top end. And it was really quite interesting here. We've been tracking this over a number of years, and the number here has grown substantially. About 4 years ago, the first time we asked this, the average number of tools attached was somewhere between 2 and 3, about 2.5. Now, actually, here 4 years later, we're all the way up to between 3 and 4, actually almost 4 if you add up the numbers here. That's really important because if you think about it, an old approach of using span off of the switch could only support 2 users of that span, or 2 span sessions. So as soon as you get to more than 3 types of tools you want to attach into any particular place, you run out of the ability of span to support that directly. So it drives the need for and the use case for these kind of distribution layers of the NPBs. So one other thing I want to point out about this here, which is really, I think, kind of interesting, is that you can see the types of tools we're checking into here are a mix of both active and passive technologies. A lot of these are passive, but some of them, like data loss prevention and IPS, are active technologies. So Joe, if you'd move to the next slide. One of the things that we found in this research that was really interesting, and actually was surprising to me, but I've come to really understand this better and better, is moving beyond the traditional passive role for these visibility fabrics, visibility architectures, and now starting to also apply the same technologies in an active inline sort of deployment mode. This is really a security-centric sort of use case. This is where you are looking to leverage the capabilities of, in particular, the load balancing capabilities within an NPB for the purposes of improving the resilience of inline active security technologies like IPS and DLP. So what we found in this research, and this is, remember, it's people who are using NVBs, NVCs, so it's not a measure of the industry as a whole, but for those who have brought them in-house and who are using them or planning to use them in the near future, we saw a very, very high level of interest or plans here in leveraging this inline use case. 40% were currently using it that way, and another 50% had plans to do so. That's pretty overwhelming in terms of folks who now have access to this technology, recognizing that this is a very, very viable and practical and valuable thing to do with it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other thoughts from the panel on that?
I would just, couple that one of the reasons that we were seeing in the inline is certainly the load balancing and the filtering. And one of the unique things that they like is this idea of, this promise of ability to service chain your security layers, right? At least one of the things that we've been able to help them is if I can filter and aggregate the traffic from one or many different links, and if I could send the web traffic to my, web security gateway, I could send all of that to the IPS minus the routing plane traffic, and then I could basically extract maybe copies of certain traffic for email and send it to my deep packet inspection to look for specific email or, some IM handle. All of that is ability to do this thought about expanding the defense in depth, desire in particularly in a network. But if you think about your edge, segments, right, between the edge router and the firewall, where you've had your IPS or your firewall, and now you're adding your next generation firewall or next generation IPS. This idea of being able to, change them, to take a tool down, minimize the change control. That's definitely one idea, one aspect, which was the load balancing aspect allows you to enable that. The other part is to be able to take traffic from one layer and then broker it to the next layer and the next layer, kind of like in series. We certainly have seen companies use that and being able to serialize, if you will, traffic between their next generation firewalls to an IPS and to these, advanced malware detection tools that they can go inline, like the likes of the FireEye and others, where they can actually start blocking the unknown threat, not just monitor it.
Excellent. Thank you. So that brings us to our first poll question for the audience here. Are you using a network visibility, intelligent aggregation network access management solutions now? And I'll go ahead and open up the voting on this.
Yeah, while we're doing that, this is Jim. Let me just mention there are a lot of different terms out there for this, but the goal is hopefully for those folks who are joining us, think of that diagram that I showed, which is what we're trying to understand is, are people leveraging this sort of distribution technology? In particular, what's known as network packet brokers or network visibility controllers. They're also known as network monitoring switches in some places. I've heard other names for them too, but those are the three most common.
Thank you very much. We've got votes coming in on that one. While the votes are coming in on this, we're going to move on. We've got a second poll question here, the 2 of 3 that we're going to go through. Next, we've got how important is enterprise web analytics for business intelligence in your company? Anybody want to add some color to that?
Yeah, I think
Curt, go ahead.
Sure. This is Curt. I think in terms of what the enterprise needs to do today, they've got a lot of influencers in the IT department today. You've got business executives wanting business intelligence things out of your network. You have customer service people who want to understand customer experience. You've got marketing departments who are trying to extract customer behavior and sentiment. And so in terms of being able to provide the information that all these factions in a company wants, you really need a web enterprise analytics solution. The question is, how active or how useful is that information to a specific market segment or organization?
Excellent. We've got 8 votes coming in. I'll leave this poll open for another couple of seconds to allow you to respond. It looks like on this one we've got quite a few responses coming in. Taking a look at the results here, it looks like the web analytics is 40% extremely important. It's somewhat important to 50% of you and not important now, but will be to the rest. So the importance here is understood. And then for that first poll, the results there was, the question was, are you using any network visibility, intelligent aggregation, network access management solutions now? And it was 58% yes. The yes planning to deploy was 0%, and 17% on no new concept.
Very interesting.
So go ahead.
I thought that's actually very interesting, and to see the adoption rate, right? I mean, it's kind of in line. This was a brand new topic a few years back, and now people are seeing it. It just, with the alarming rate of the speed of traffic is growing, and all the different applications, as Curt was talking about. One thing is to get the traffic, hopefully remove the cost and complexity of getting the traffic, and the other thing is, again, now what do I do with it? And having the right tools to be able to look for what you need and find what you want. Those are kind of two problems we're seeing, kind of connected at the hip.
Makes sense. Are these answers that you're seeing coming in falling in line with what you're seeing in the industry for each of you?
Yeah, this is Jim. I would say in terms of the use of the technology, I would agree with Tony's comment. Actually, the interesting thing we're finding is that a growing number of shops are starting to look at these visibility architectures as architectural, as strategic. There's business case behind them. There are, really good best practices oriented reasoning behind them. And so they're starting to be more of a strategic sort of aspect of infrastructure and operations, as opposed to simply being the tactical answers they've been in the past. So that makes sense on the visibility front.
Yeah, on the web analytics question, it does fall quite a bit in line with what we see in the market. People who can quantify the analytic, the specific information they want to extract out of their network, and tie it to a specific, what the industry typically calls actionable intelligence, as opposed to intelligence that's kind of cool, but it doesn't really mean anything in terms of business profitability. Those people typically will say it's extremely important because they can map the information to, real-world revenue, profitability, operational cost savings, et cetera. Typically, when we see people that are saying it's somewhat important or not important now but will be, and this is not the fault of the people, it's just it's a struggle in some areas to map the useful information that you can extract to a real business benefit in some cases. So sometimes the analytics capabilities are not there. Sometimes the correlation is weak. So depending on how you look at the data, you can get a yes and a no answer. And so that can, I think people, but in terms of this poll question, I think it's obvious that people are saying yes, there is value there, but there is varying shades of gray and how important it is.
Excellent. Thank you. So we will move to, with that, we will move to our last poll question here. Last question is, are you able to select the right tools for your enterprise carrier network intelligence, analytics, and business intelligence needs? And I'm going to open up the voting there.
Right. And I think just following on the same thought, right, I think if you have access to the packets when you need it, where you need it, and you solve that problem, and if you have the right tool that to be able to allow you to do that, whether it's web analytics or the deep packet inspection, those are expensive cycles. So the combination of this access and brokerage layer and the right tool sets, I think what customers want, ultimately, they want to accelerate their security intelligence, how quickly they can find out which they don't know, and then really optimize the network intelligence, right? And it starts with getting access to all the data, but all the right data sets. You certainly don't want to send a lot of email traffic or VoIP traffic into your video analyzer, for instance. And if you send those, you may not want to bog down that video analytics with the actual RTP payload, right? But you want to know the context so you can measure the jitter, the quality of service, quality of experience. So these are all different tool sets, all needing to act upon specific business problem that you're trying to solve. If you're like a telco provider or a service provider, and you're dealing with video analytics, you want something that actually can tell you down to milliseconds or maybe even lower than that, where was the jitter experience? Because if you cannot provide that quality of experience, that quality of service into your customer, you're going to be dealing with what they call subscriber churn, which is the worst thing that you can mention to a service provider today. Because, we all have our choices, our, AT&T's, T-Mobile's, whatever. And as a consumer, if you're not getting the quality of service, I don't think there's a whole lot of loyalty, right? You just switch over. And those are millions of dollars. So I think this question is going to help, the customers. We want to understand, are you finding the right tool sets? I mean, are they doing what they're supposed to do? And if not, what are the challenges? Is it that the performance you're not getting out of them is hindering them because they're seeing too many traffic, or is it just the time that you need to evaluate all the right tools to deploy?
Excellent. And while we're waiting for a few more votes to come in, I just want to remind the audience, feel free to use the questions feature to ask questions to our panelists, and I'll field them up to them as they come in. Looks like we have about 13 votes on this. So far, it's an even split. We're almost just about 25% across the board for yes, we're happy, yes, but they don't integrate well, no, there are tools, but they don't have important features, and no, can't find what we need at all. We're a little bit more weighted to the yes, but they don't integrate well.
Yeah, this is Jim. If I can just mention, one of the constant themes of conversation that I end up talking with folks about is, the need looking forward to integrate, these various different analytic viewpoints, and that's driven by, I think, two things. Number one, the need to step back and understand how everything's working together as part of it, but also there's really interesting and valuable information coming out of each different types of analytic strategy that can be relevant to other purposes, other roles, other functions. In particular, Tony mentioned voice quality and the concern with churn. That's a concern in the enterprise as well, as you try to roll out things like voice over IP. And you're trying to make sure that your security systems are not creating any sort of performance issues or problems with quality of a latency or loss sensitive traffic type such as VoIP. Being able to correlate the feedback you're getting out of multiple systems sometimes is really important to achieve service quality goals, internal or external.
Yeah, I think I would just add that the integration piece, that we see that a lot. That's why I really like Jim's packet visibility architecture diagram. Some people will see the right tool for the job, the right application, but then they're missing pieces in between. They're missing the visibility, the load balancing, something, and that leads to a lot of frustration because they have the app, they know where the data is, but they can't bridge the two pieces together, and that can be a common issue in the market today.
Excellent.